This week on the Wealthy Pilots podcast, we're going to break down the contingency planning of the first step, if I die.
We've got some turbulence up ahead. Reach out to the pilot's planner. Affirmative 610.
All right, guys, welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Scott and I this week. Hopefully my cryptic intro didn't weird you out too much. But, you know, Scott, we were saying we were going to talk about this stuff, and there you go. What do you do if I die? Well, guess what? You're gonna. Right?
You're gonna. Yeah.
We're all gonna.
And there's really two parts here. One is the when I die plan.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the, maybe three parts actually. The when I die plan, the if I die young plan,
okay,
and then the if my spouse dies young plan.
Or unexpectedly, right? You could put that in there if you'd like.
Yes.
Yeah. Something like car accident, medical diagnosis, whatever, right?
Yep.
And you got to have, so if you didn't check out our prior podcast, folks, on contingency planning, I think it's a great intro to kind of the concept. You don't need to watch it in order to understand this one, but it's not a bad idea. So go check that first one out. But really the point is, talking about having those extra steps in case things go wrong, because it's life. We've all heard about this dude Murphy and his laws, and he jacks things up all the time. And anybody who finds him, by the way, is going to, pummel that guy. But you got to have a plan in place. And so how do you want to address this? If I die, because we're all going to, do you want to start with the young? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's start with the if I die plan, which is like the if I die young or my spouse dies young. It applies to both. And then we'll transition into the when I die. But really from an if I die young perspective, this is really like we got to look at a couple things that are going to significantly impact our family. So let's say that this is somebody who's maybe under 50. They have minor kids at home. They're making good money, but they're not set for retirement at all. You're still saving for kids' college and trying to get them launched, all that. Yeah. That's a very common phase, late 40s, 50s, somewhere in that time frame. Now, if you pass in that age range, I mean, your income is vital, absolutely vital to the long-term financial success of your family. Now, you might, I was just talking to one guy this week. His wife works part-time as a doctor, and she's making a couple $100,000 a year. That's awesome. She's probably going to figure out how to pay the bills. Depends on the lifestyle. Maybe she has to downgrade the house or something like that, but everybody's scenario is unique. And I meet people all the time who had a buddy at one of the big insurance companies sell them some whole life insurance policy. And, I got life insurance. Well, what do you got? I got 200,000. Okay. That's 8 months of your income. Now what, and I get a payout from Delta or whatever the case is. But when you really look at, solving issues, that's generally what my folks are trying to talk through, which is how do we solve this issue of loss of income? Okay. How much insurance does it take to get that in place? Typically with a very cheap term insurance policy that we know that issue is solved. And also we can always say, hey, if the market goes on a tear or you get run into some money or inherit money, you can always cancel that policy and it doesn't cost you a dime. But from a contingency planning standpoint, if I die young, what happens to our finances? Okay. So I'm 41. So if I die now versus when I die at 50, I got 7 kids, brother. I'm not going to retire at 50. I could probably get another 20 years to work after that.
You got to work. That's right.
Yeah. So I got to have a good amount of laddered insurance out there, but I'm not going to need as much at 55 with all the kids out of the house as I am now at 41 with 9 of us under one roof and my wife being a stay-at-home mom. And so there's this is a 20-minute exercise. In this 20-minute exercise, we can figure out how do we solve this what if I die, what if she dies issue, and we can get the right solutions in place. But it's not fun to think about.
No, not at all. Yeah.
We hear all the time, I'll deal with that later. Next thing you know, I'm 45 and people are feeling that weight. When we finally get on that topic, you can tell they're feeling the weight on their shoulders a little bit about
Yeah.
I need to get this taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, it's daunting when you just have one kid. I mean, I just have the one, and it's stuff that it went through, my wife's and I's brain for a number of years. And we did exactly that, Scott. We procrastinated it.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, life happened. So we're talking, it's almost 4 years ago now. So, I'm 47 or whatever. And we're like, all right, I need to get on this, right? I need to make this happen. And then COVID showed up.
Yep.
Well, I put that on the back burner. Probably the dumbest thing to do, considering the fact of what was going on.
There's a pandemic going around.
That people were having respiratory issues, right? And it was affecting people with heart problems, which I had. So it's kind of like not the smart, but that's what happens. It doesn't make you bad or wrong. It just makes you human. But you need somebody to help you kind of go, hey, let's get this in gear. Let's get this done. It's not as daunting as you think with a little help.
Well, and the other part of it too, it's important to do for both spouses because Andrew's a stay-at-home mom,
and that's a value you can't replace, man. If you had to fund 7 kids, someone to take care of 7 kids,
I've run the numbers, and I think it would cost me around $60,000 a year. Between all the running to appointments and helping to do all the stuff she does to keep the house running and grocery shopping.
Shocked. That's lower than I thought.
Yeah. Well, I live in a low cost area here in Toledo, Ohio, so that helps. But, to hire basically a full-time nanny, and that's not replacing Andrew, but it replaces a lot of the tasks that she
need,
does.
right? Yeah. The specific need. Yeah.
To help me, not have to be a part-time stay-at-home husband, or stay-at-home dad, so to speak. So, that's one example of like, hey, you need to think through that.
Yeah.
Because that, especially if you're a pilot and you got kids at home, who's taking care of that while you're flying on a 3-day trip?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem that you gotta either live with the risk and be okay with it, or for, pennies on the dollar, take care of it and cross it off your list forever.
Okay. So that's, the if I die prematurely, if I die unexpectedly, you have that contingency plan in place. All right. Now the basics here should apply, I would imagine, in some of that scenario, Scott, to the normal, hey, I've lived a nice full life and at some point I'm going to, kick the bucket.
Correct. And now when we kind of segue into the when I die plan, there's 2 things here. One is I recommend everybody have what I call a when I die binder, especially the person who's like the financial leader of the household, not necessarily the highest income earner, but if you're the person that's like paying the bills and looking at the investments and get all the stuff together for taxes,
the logins and all that stuff.
And if you reach out to us, we'll get you the table of contents and you can build your own binder. And if you just do the table of contents, if you die early or when you die later, whoever is left holding that is going to have the keys to the financial kingdom at least, and be able to figure out what is all the life insurance we have, where are all of our investments, who even does our taxes, all that kind of stuff that a lot of times that non financial spouse just doesn't really know.
And maybe they don't want to know. They've never. It's not their thing. I mean, we hear this all the time. And at the minimum, if you're DIYing it, you've got this binder, which would be great help, obviously, when you're going through the emotional turmoil. But if you do have a professional on your side as well, then you also have the binder and a resource, right? You can call and go, Scott, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, that's more, I'll say, on like the non-legal side. That to me is just taking care of my spouse. Obviously I need to have the legal side taken care of too, but this is like, I love you and I'm not going to leave you a mess.
Yes. Because you're going to be an emotional mess. Why add to it?
Why add to it? And that's the worst for spouses to have to deal with that while they're grieving the loss of a spouse too.
Yeah, the lifted weight of that alone is pretty, and people don't realize it till they're in it, and rightfully so, because you've not been there in your life. But as a financial professional and one who I talk to them all the time, they see this every day. They see that weight lifted when the inevitable happens, somebody passes, and the loved one is left behind, and they have these ducks in a row. They just feel that weight is not as bad as it would have been. Now they can properly. Actually, it was a really interesting story. The lady I bought this house from, Scott, her husband passed unexpectedly in that if I die unexpectedly category. And it took her 3 years to get this property taken care of and cleaned up before she could even sell it. She needed to sell it. It's too big for her. and took her 3 years to do that. And she was telling me we actually met. A lot of times you don't meet the people that you talk to or that you buy the house from, but we actually met and chatted about a few things. She wanted to show me some of the idiosyncrasies around the place that she loved. And she said, I didn't get a chance. I told her what I did for a living, and she's like, I never got a chance to properly grieve for my husband. Yeah. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. She's like, because he didn't have a plan, and I was scrambling when he passed away.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's hitting you square between the eyes. But, the one thing with that plan or that scenario is the person who leaves the mess doesn't have to deal with it, and that's a shame. So,
yeah,
but,
very true.
On the legal side, if we pivot over to that legal side, the binder, the when I die, taking care of all that is important. But then if you also leave a legal mess, that's bad too. So we got to get that cleaned up, and that might look like, hey, I got minor children or a complex estate. I'm going to meet with a trust attorney. And dude, all these major airlines that we're typically working with our folks, they offer like a MetLife package, and like you can get an estate plan done for like $100 a trust, and the company's picking up the rest of the tab. So there's a lot there that they can take advantage of to get a trust if they need it, get a will, which everybody should have, get their powers of attorney, and get all that stuff cleaned up. And then once it's done, dust it off every few years and just kind of think through, have we had any major life changes? And then if not, you're probably good. If so, do a revision, pay another $100, get it revised, and keep yourself legally clean from a when I die perspective. And I can tell you, obviously we do investing and money management for people and retirement planning and all that. This contingency planning, especially on this if I die side, especially that when I die binder, I have had more spouses just tell me like, I have more confidence in our plan than I ever had before because of this. They don't necessarily care that the returns have been better or whatever the case is, or that we've improved some tax efficiency. Like that's like, whatever. Our lifestyle.
It's great, but it doesn't move.
When these things are done and they both know it's been on their list for like a decade or longer, that's when they're like, I feel like I'm making real progress on my plan. And I am like truly feeling that sense of financial peace that if something happens to him or her, I'm not going to be left holding a bag of crap. I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's how we lean forward, kill procrastination, show some love to some people that we love, and just take care of business.
Dude, that's a great way to end the podcast this week. So, we're all going to pass, have a plan, have a strategy in place for hopefully that nice long life and passing in your bed asleep like we would all like to do at the ripe old age of whatever. But also have that contingency plan, which is the topic of our conversation, the series of podcasts we'll do over a couple of coming weeks. And having that in place is going to be crucial. And again, you can see those results. You can feel those results whenever you're talking with advisors and hearing those stories of people that go through those things. So if you need some help, reach out to Scott. He's at thepilotsplanner.com. That's thepilotsplanner.com. Just give him a call, give him on the calendar, whatever you need to do, but take some action for yourself and for your loved ones. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Hit the little thumbs up and the notification bell so you catch new episodes of the Wealthy Pilots podcast. And I'll see you next time, my friend. Hang in there.
All right. Don't wait. Get it done. Get it done.
We'll see you next time here on the Wealthy Pilots podcast with Scott Osborn.
Is your 401k working as hard as you are? Let's find out at thepilotsplanner.com to get started with your free full thrust 401k toolkit. Come see what a good financial co-pilot can do to help make sure your retirement is ready to take flight. Visit us at thepilotsplanner.com. That's thepilotsplanner.com.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.